Our next generation portable is officially named PlayStation Vita.
Vita does indeed mean life, and to all my fellow Vita fans out there, rejoicing knowing that no matter how bad things get, no matter how many developers and publishers stop putting out games for the platform, or how many games get removed from the PSN store, that things will never be as bad as that Halo Infinite reveal. I mean, look at this thing. What am I even looking at there? Well, speaking of PSN removals, this month and next month sees one of the biggest PS Vita series get removed for purchase from the PSN store, and that's the Danganronpa series. If you don't know about these games, they're a hybrid visual novel game with a mystery whodunit kind of scenario. They're actually a very good series, I enjoyed them quite a bit. So after these 4 games get removed, you'll only be able to purchase them physically, that's why physical always remains king. But not to fret, this seems like it's a rights issue, with the rights of the games expiring from NIS America and reverting back to the developers, which are Spike Chunsoft. I'm sure down the line Spike Chunsoft will put the games back on the store for sale again. So if you're seeing a massive price rise in the physical title, I'd hold off for now, and you'll likely see the price come back down again once the games get back on the store. And speaking of physical games, July also saw one of the last physical releases from Limited Run Games, and that was Papers, Please. I actually tried to purchase this, but unfortunately it sold out in about 30 seconds, so not much hope there. Recently, Limited Run Games have gone into more of a pre-order kind of system rather than selling a limited number of copies, because honestly their site and structure just isn't suited for a mass amount of people at one time, and it leads to an issue much like we saw with Papers, Please, with lots of angry Vita fans who will now have to fork out plenty more cash to scalpers who already have them listed on eBay for stupid money. Now, I would say one thing that Limited Run Games do that I'm not too happy with, and that's they bundle a certain amount of copies at a very high price with a bunch of other things that have nothing to do with the Vita release. So they make you pay an extortionate amount for things that you don't want just to get a copy of the game. So that's a bit of a shady business tactic on their behalf. But for the actual normal release, I can't blame them obviously, because they only had a limited number of copies as it's an old title, and obviously with no new physical production happening with Vita carts in the West, they can't do an open pre-order, so it is what it is. Unfortunately, it'll mean that many of us will miss out on this title physically, but hey, there's always digital, I suppose. Well, unless that gets removed down the line too. So with that news out the way, let's get into what I played this month on the PlayStation Vita. Now, first up is a game called Hymno. I honestly didn't get along with this at first. It took me a good hour or so to really get into the hang of things, because for a start, you cannot play this in a room with any kind of light because you'll just die. The game is extremely dark, so it requires a dark room to actually see anything. So very much a nighttime game. It's basically an endless exploration game. There's honestly not a whole lot of point to the game. There's no goal because it just seems to go on forever. The controls are your standard platformer. They're a bit finicky, is what took me a little to get used to, because they don't control perfectly of how you'd want it to control, so it's a little bit off, and it leads to some weird situations of dying and you're not quite sure if you're in a ledge and things like that. But once you get the hang of it, and you get a hang of the dash, which is on the right shoulder button, then you'll start flying around the map pretty quickly. But once you do get the hang of it, you start questioning what's the point. I was getting like 30-40 levels deep. I was just questioning like, what exactly am I doing with my life? Because there's no goals, there's no end point to this. It doesn't make any sense. I guess it's just a bit of a time waster game really. There's not much depth to it, and it doesn't really explain a lot either. Like, you collect wisps that you can reuse a second go around as well when you die, because in this game you only get one life basically. So when you die once, you got to start again from the beginning. But the levels themselves are all dynamically generated, so there's not much point really. It's not like you can memorize a level or anything like that. But Hymno, it's okay. If it's cheap and you want a quick mess around for an hour or two, that's fine, but nothing more than that. And the second game, this is a bit of a throwback game. This was developed decades ago by a company called Digital Illusions, who you might now know as DICE. It was meant to release on the Sega Mega Drive or the Genesis in the US, and it never got released because it never got finished. So they decided to go back and finish the game, and that's Ultra Core. Now obviously, being a game from that era, it very much feels like it in the control aspect. For a start, I'd press select. For some reason, the game's letterboxed, and you press select, it just makes it bigger. I'm not sure why they give you the option to make it even smaller, because it doesn't offer anything in the ratio size, because it doesn't fill the whole screen anyway. But press select so it at least fills most of the screen. The controls will take a little while to get used to. To put simply, it's an archaic game, but you will get the hang of the shooting. What you won't get a hang of though is the platforming. It's brutally difficult. Most of your deaths will be on missing a platform, falling through a platform, not quite missing a jump and things like that. It's very much a game of frustration in that aspect, just like those old games were. They were meant to prolong the experience on purpose. This is exactly that. Now, when you do use all your lives up, you'll have to start again. Thankfully, once you get past a level, they give you a password. It doesn't use any modern gaming conventions like that. It's all a password system, and you will be using it. It's a game designed to make you die. There's no getting around that really. But it is an enjoyable experience. Once you do get a hang of the shooting, it is quite fun. And the graphics obviously hold up, being pixel art. So if you want a bit of a game that's a throwback, but just know it comes with that frustration, then I could recommend Ultra Core. And next up is 36 Fragments of Midnight. Now, like Hymno, this is dynamically generated, so there's only one level, and you play as a little white square. Also like Hymno, that I'd recommend playing this in the dark, because it's another one of those games that you'll end up missing spikes and stuff like that because it blends in so well with the screen. But you play as a little white square, and you've got to collect 36 fragments around the level. If anything touches you, you instantly die, so you get one shot at this, and once you die, the fragments have all moved again, and the traps and everything, it's all reset, so it will take you a little while to get everything, just because of the layout. Again, this is a quick experience, if you get the hang of the physics and things like that. It does play well. The physics are a little bit on the weighty side, and you understand when you play it. The character sometimes drops a bit faster than you anticipate. Like I said, it's simple, there's not a ton to it, so you will master it pretty quickly and hopefully get the platinum. And the final game that I played this month is Awesome P2. Now, this looks like a Game Boy game. It's got that sepia type of tone to it. I've not played the first one, so I have no idea how that one plays. It's a cool game, to be honest. It's quite difficult, and that's due to the length of the levels. It's kind of going for a Super Meat Boy type of vibe with how difficult some of the levels are, and you've got to do them all in one shot, and because there's no checkpoints or anything like that, and there's multiple times you can mess up in a level and you've got to start it all over again, so it will take you a while to get into it all. I'd recommend turning off the CRT mode, which warps the screen. For some reason these games have that, and I don't enjoy it. I prefer the standard screen. But it's an enjoyable platformer. It gets difficult very quickly. It's definitely not an easing process, and this is one I'd highly recommend this month if you're into difficult platformers. So that's all I played this month, so let's get into what's coming out next month on the PlayStation Vita. Now, before I start, I will say that a lot of people are having problems with the PSN store on the Vita because it requires a manual update and it never gets updated anymore. You won't find a lot of these games that are in these videos, so I'd always recommend going to the actual website of PlayStation Store itself because they're always listed there. But let's get into them. So on August 5th, we've got Steam Tactics. Welcome aboard your airship, Captain. Steam Tactics is an RPG about steampunk airships with tactical turn-based combat. Take on a role of a captain of a squad of airship pilots. Acquire and upgrade new ships and weapons, level up your crew. The king is gravely ill. The queen wishes to employ your services. You are one of the most renowned mercenary tacticians in the land. Will you answer the kingdom's call? Any kind of tactics game on the Vita, I wholly welcome, so I'm looking forward to this. And on August 19th, we've got a mystery game. Now, all they've told me about this one is that it's related to politics, and it's kind of a visual novel game, but not quite. So if you've got any idea what it might be, let me know in the comments. And on August 25th, we've got Alpha Set. This new word puzzle is a mix of crosswords and Sudoku, challenging both your vocabulary and your deduction skills. There are 26 blank squares. Each letter of the alphabet must be placed exactly once in order to fill the grid with valid English words. Reveal a terrible joke each time you solve a puzzle. And on August 28th, we've got Task Force Campus, drawing inspiration from the golden age of Japanese shoot-'em-ups. Task Force Campus combines retro action with modern conventions, adding new mechanics and randomly generated stages with handcrafted bosses. In a unique twist, the game can be finished, but skilled players will find a way to continue past the ending and claim even higher scores. Rhythmic gameplay and a pulsing soundtrack work together to create an intense audio-visual experience. This looks like it's right up my alley, so I'll definitely try and play this one. And finally, a game that's already out in America, but it's meant to be releasing sometime this month for the rest of us, and that's Big Dipper, a miracle beyond the polar circle. They say it's hard to find a place to call your own, But what if such a place was not uniquely yours? What if both of you were not willing to give it up? Big Dipper is a kinetic visual novel which tells a romantic story of the unusual circumstances that brought two lovers together one fateful New Year's Eve. Family troubles forced our protagonist Andrew to leave his childhood home and step into an early adulthood. Cast out on his own by a cruel twist of fate, he was led far north, where he was saved from the cold by an elderly furniture maker. Andrew studied his craft. Soon after, he was finally able to afford his own house. Sometimes, however, what's yours is not yours alone. Enter Julia. But who is she? And if you're looking forward to some physical releases this month, Play Asia have got you covered with 2 releases, and the first is one that's highly requested, and that's Chasm. I believe this is limited to 2,500 copies. I'm guessing a lot of people will be buying that one. And the other one is the Awesome P collection. I covered Awesome P2 in the video today, so I've not played the first, so I might pick this up just to check out the original game. As usual, I'll leave the links in the description. And that's it for this month. As usual, we've always got the giveaway going on, so if you want to get yourself a code for a free Vita game, just hop into the Crash Landed forum thread, which I'll leave the link again in the description. And I hope you're all well. You can also let me know what you've been playing this month, just leave a comment below. And as always, don't forget, Vita means life.